Indiana Jones, It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the podcast where we probably stay out of range of the film Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, 1 minute at a time. I'm Tom Taylor.
I'm Pete, St. Polycarp of Smyrna, patron saint of dysentery, Mummert.
It's kind of fun, isn't it?
It is. I'm trying to force you back into being Gerald Christopher Marcus Porter, I think.
One of these days.
Why, you know what, Pete? That was a beautiful move. I'm Gerald Christopher Marcus Porter.
Oh, that's
Hey, all right.
yeah.
Although I will say, I think this might be. We've had a Marcus storm. I'm afraid this might just be the eye of the hurricane. You know,
We'll see.
where it's kind of just it's
Yeah.
quiet, but that's only because you're in the eye of the storm. We'll see.
It's like you got hit on the head with another coconut. Now you've reverted.
Wait.
But I'm Pete the Retailer.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Hello.
Welcome back, Pete.
Thank you.
It's good to see you
Welcome
here.
back. Yeah.
Wait, you can see me?
Yeah. There you
I'm a
are.
real boy.
Wait a minute. Is he really? Who is that? Wait, Smyrna is the patron saint of dysentery, or those afflicted by?
I don't know. I
Yeah,
didn't
is
go
it
that
the
deep.
disease or the?
Yeah.
He's like, no, I'm just in charge of the disease. You guys, if you're suffering from it, you're on your own.
Not all patrons.
I'm here to protect the virus.
Dear, who is it? Of dear Saint
St.
whatever.
Polycarp, he was one of the big guys. He was like, he got martyred. He was like one of the really, really early martyrs.
Yeah.
See you later,
You know what? There's a whole bunch of them. Like when you get from like the 1st century to the 6th century, you're like, oh yeah, they racked up a lot of them by then. Most of them are martyrs.
Yeah. I'm not Catholic, so I don't know how all this works, but
Like we do.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah,
You
I'm
just
glad I
pick
didn't,
one and whatever flavor you want.
glad everyone didn't gasp after I said that.
And nobody's going to call you on it. It's just, you just make up, you say Saint blah, blah, the patron saint of blah, 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 blah. And
Hey, that's
people,
not cool.
That's also not entirely true
Yeah.
because we've got Father David listening.
That's true.
Oh,
right.
that is
Yeah.
true. He will. He will call.
Also, before we get started, it always sounds like, Jerry, you're saying patron. Patron saint?
No, it's patron.
It is, but I think you say patron a lot.
It does sound like
I
patron
say
sometimes.
patron.
The Patreon saint of,
The
Yeah.
Patreon saint
Yeah.
of supporters of the show.
I say
of
the
course,
patron.
Father David.
Patron.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
I don't know.
Another-
I have weird speech impediments.
That's why we love you. All right. Let's use our words for this awkward segue for minute 85. Which begins with Vogel saying that where they're going must be within 3 or 4 miles. And it ends with Sala mourning the loss of his brother-in-law's car.
So yeah, Vogel says we must be within 3 or 4 miles, otherwise we are off the map. And after talking to Thor, our cartographer, how on earth would he possibly know this? Because there's no legend of any kind on that map.
Yeah, people need to stop calling that a map.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a map. Like, what he's like looking at it as he's like, oh, it's over this way. Yeah. According to this Friendly's placemat that I scribbled on, it might be around this bend. Squiggly line and a
yeah.
thing.
we have to turn left at how to make a Manhattan.
Just over Tic-Tac-Toe Ridge.
Yeah, I got stuck in that maze.
I feel like, sometimes being a good leader is knowing what you're not good at. Right, Vogel?
Sure.
Yeah, it's
know your
that's why you hire
limitations.
other people who don't do stuff that, who do stuff that maybe you don't do.
Yeah.
Although to be fair, he actually seems like he finds it pretty easily, so maybe he is the guy that knows how to do this.
Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe he's like a hobbyist cartographer.
You can only read really horrible maps that were done by other hobbyists.
Right. It's like, oh, I recognize this lack of craftsmanship.
Oh, this is the famous Jones projection.
Right. Marcus, well, I should ask you, Jerry. Marcus gets very serious here. He says, you're meddling with powers you cannot possibly comprehend. And does this, I'm not even sure what my answer is, but Jerry, you've had a hard time with Marcus in this movie. That's well documented. Does this at all get you a little bit back to the Marcus you love?
You know, I was just surprised he isn't wearing a red clown nose.
It's like Donovan shoots him with the seltzer bottle when he offers him a drink.
Yeah.
Well, bingo, we're about to find the Holy Grail. What do you think of that?
He reaches out at Bogle. No, I mean, I have no idea.
Vogel's got the flower that shoots water in his face.
Yeah. Try to wet your whistle, Marcus.
No, actually, you know what's great, Pete, and I think we're in synchronicity here, and I love it. We're in communion here. Is I actually did have. My name is Gerald Christopher Marcus Porter.
Whoa.
To answer your
that's nice.
question, yeah, I really did. I really
Nice.
did. To answer your question here, Tommy, you know, it's really not that hard. It's not that hard at all. All I wanted was just a little bit of this. That was all.
Yeah.
I really, really like Marcus here. This is all I needed. He's great. He has one line. It's a serious line, and they kind of, like he says, he says you're meddling with powers you cannot possibly comprehend. And, they show his face. He doesn't say anything else. He doesn't let out a fart afterwards. I mean, he just like, they show his face, and he's serious. I'm like, that was it, man. That was all
Yeah.
I was looking for.
How hard
So
can
you
it
like
be?
your Marcus with a catchphrase.
No, I mean, well, that's low. That's low.
No, I don't think a catchphrase is necessarily bad. I think
I feel like, yeah, you're using my own energy against me, like judo.
I realize you're more fun riled up than all peaceful and happy.
You mean because he doesn't say that exactly. When does he say that exactly?
It's not the exact thing, but it's pretty close
Yeah.
to what he says in Raiders.
No, it is. And I mean it. Sure, you're right. It is a little catch philosophy phrase.
It's a sentiment that he
Yeah.
espouses more than once.
See, I was wondering more
Yeah.
if he's dealing with dementia a little bit now, and he just sort of says the same thing over and over.
Maybe.
You know what? Yeah, that would make sense.
He's in the hot sun.
It's interesting though because, unlike with Indy, Elsa actually looks over at him like and thinks about this really hard.
Yeah.
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 No, I know you're
I
right.
noticed that look
You're right.
this time. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, wow. Like, she's taking that seriously.
Yeah.
And what is she thinking though? Does she agree with him, or is she suddenly confronted about this for the first time, and she's like, "Huh, I hadn't thought about that before."
Yeah, like in hindsight, after you see the end of the movie, do you say, "Oh, that was her thinking"? Yeah, these guys don't know what they're up against, and they don't know what they're dealing with, and I'm gonna play them. I'm gonna play that against them. Sort of
Or is she
thing.
looking over and just, "Oh man, this guy really is a moron, isn't he?"
This guy needs a
She's looking over. She's like, who said that? I can't. My goggles are all fogged up. I can't.
You guys here? Donovan?
Well, so question for Pete the retailer here.
Yes.
So why
me.
does Marcus say this, and why does he think this here in 1938? Is it because the guy just has faith and he has a respect for this sort of thing, these types of Holy Grail type of antiquities, things of a religious nature, things that are that sacred? Or is it that, like, he had a sit down with Indy after Raiders, and he's like, so, hey, what happened? And he's like, Indy was like, no, you know all that stuff you're talking about, the boogeyman and all that, like, you were right. Like, it was really crazy. I had my eyes shut, so I can't really tell you what happened, but I know it was spiritual, and I know it was serious. And, like, you were right to warn me at the beginning of Raiders here when I was packing my bags.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more like that. And potentially, hopefully, if this is a wider universe, more things happen to these people when they're not on screen. So maybe even after raiders, or even before. Maybe Marcus has seen things to just make him more convinced that, like, oh yeah, all this stuff that is legendary is actually kind of real. So
Right.
Well, now I like that idea that maybe Marcus has seen so many crazy things that, I mean, he's now kind of just gone a little batty.
right.
But okay, so
mouth of
here now I'm
madness.
going to use your energy against you and throw it back at you. If that's the case, that's not a guy who sits in his little curating office and like goes to little wine and cheese cocktail parties. You have to choose wisely here, Peter. Which Marcus is your Marcus? Because
I don't know.
if
He
he's
can
seen
just-
so much in crazy things, that would mean that he's out on these adventures.
He
I don't know if
was.
he has to have seen stuff. I think he could just like be reading and studying stuff. And I mean, for Henry hasn't seen anything, and he firmly believes in the power of the Grail and everything. So I don't know.
Wait a minute, I don't know if that's been established.
Maybe not. I'm just talking. I'm making a point.
You think it's not been established that Henry believes in it?
We don't. It hasn't been established that Henry has a spiritual or particular, I guess, theological or religious affinity for the Holy Grail. I think he's a dude who's like obsessed with this object, but we don't even know what he's going to do if he procures it. Like, what is he going to do? Put it on his mantle or worship or take it down to St. John's Cathedral and donate it?
I thought you were going to go a different direction with that, because I thought he does have a spiritual affinity that we had seen pretty conclusively, but that he had never been a field worm. So we don't know that he's ever actually been out in the field like Indy and apparently Marcus have.
Well, I'm not saying he couldn't develop one. I just don't see one now.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
I know we had this conversation, but again, I get tired
Yeah.
and I forget what we said.
That's why I'm asking Pete the retailer the questions. Here, Pete, why don't you run minute 85? You run a successful podcast.
You seem pretty
Why
lucid.
don't you- yeah. Here's the ball. Why don't you run with it?
No, but I think him being kind of, him seeing a lot would make him kind of more. He's like, yeah, it's all out there, and so he wouldn't be the kind of necessarily be the guy running around. He would be the guy in the office, just knowing, studying the stuff and kind of understanding. Like, he doesn't have to go see it to prove that it's real. He doesn't have to actually, like go find it and get in trouble, get in danger anymore. He can just kind of, study the clues and be like, well, yep, I don't have to hold that in front of me, but I know that that's probably real, and that jives with what I believe in and what I've seen. So he's content just to kind of sit there and be like, okay, be a scholar of it.
And maybe he's just really gullible, and Indy's kind of an unreliable narrator. And Indy always comes back and he's like, hey, Marcus, I saw this ark and everybody melted, or I saw these magic rocks and this whole village came back to life. And Marcus is just eating all this stuff up. And so he's like, oh my God, every one of these things has powers we can't comprehend.
Right.
Well, I mean, there are plenty of church-going folk who, fully believe all that stuff. They blessed are those who believe and have not seen. There's like
Right.
you don't have to go out and be a field worm and open the Ark of the Covenant or anything.
Right.
For a lot of people, they just take it on faith. And that's what Marcus says at the beginning of the movie. He's like, I'm taking a lot of things on faith at my age.
Well, doesn't Indy ask him, Marcus, do you believe?
Yeah, and he's kind of like, it sounds like he's saying I do, but there's no way I
Yeah.
can explain that to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a huge, there's a lot of ground between, just believing in, the divine, believing in your particular God, and then believing that, like, oh no, well this cup has the magic powers of that God kind of, imbued in it and can do crazy things. There's a huge,
Right.
gap between like, oh yeah, well I believe that, this person existed and we can find artifacts of them, to being like, and if we find those artifacts, we can then unleash the wrath of God and destroy the invading army.
Yeah. All of Jesus' leftovers are super weapons. Left for us to find.
But you know what's really weird about that then? Why did Marcus then stand in Henry's house and, he says, Indy says, Marcus, get me a ticket to Venice. And he goes, I'll take 2.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, so if he knows that the Grail is not to be disturbed, just like he knew that about the Ark of the Covenant, Like, if he knows the Grail is not to be disturbed or not to be meddled with or messed with or whatever you want to, drunk from, whatever you want to say, then why does he agree to go on these madcap adventures where he already thinks that if we get anywhere near this canyon or the Grail, don't touch it?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's exactly why he's going along, to make sure nobody meddles with it.
Oh man, that would be a crazy twist. Like, do another story where like Marcus is just this, like maybe he's an angel the whole time and he's just there to protect these things and make sure, like, and just have it kind of be a scene where like something is going to go wrong and like Indy can't quite protect him. All of a sudden, like Marcus just like imbued with power. She's like, no, you must not touch this.
Now I want this to be a Wings of Desire tie-in, and he's going to turn to Peter Falk in a minute.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of weird. Did Marcus just put this together now in this car ride? Or did he have time to think in the back of the Nazi Potemkin village truck? He's like, you know what? I probably shouldn't be seeking this. This has just been bad news. Ever since I, landed in Venice. This really isn't a fun trip for me.
Or is he just saying, you know what, the Nazis are bad and they're just looking at this as a weapon? Maybe we're looking at this from a different point of view than they are. Maybe they don't know what they're dealing with.
Yeah, I think intent is important. Like he's probably not looking to disturb it, but just discover it. So he's after the knowledge, and maybe like, leave it all intact, leave everything where it is, and just be like, oh, so having this artifact, knowing where it is, being able to lay eyes on it is enough that it would be like, this verification of everything that A, he studied, and B, that he believed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's really interesting is, I like that the Ark of the Covenant is the greatest, weapon of mass destruction. And then the Grail is the greatest regenerator of something. It's whatever the opposite of mass destruction. You're like, it's mass healing?
Yeah.
Mass construction, yeah.
Mass construction, you have mass everlasting life-giving thing.
Yeah, so if you were melted by the Ark, then you quickly drank out of the Grail, would you be able to undo it?
Yeah, I think so.
How do I look?
Well, I was wondering that. Like, do you get frozen in your last state whenever you drink it?
Oh, wow.
So, like, if you drink it and, like, you've got a sunburn, like, if they're all sunburned, does that mean they have a sunburn for the rest of their lives?
They have, like, a bad haircut, and they're, like, stuck in that.
Yeah,
like,
bad haircut.
I'll never heal this bad haircut.
Well, then what's great is then the Shankar stones are just, like, they're just really local.
But on the other hand, they're the perfect bridge because they're both destructive and constructive, depending on how you use them.
Well, the Grail is like if you're playing a video game and there's like, power-ups and like health, restore-y things. You don't want your enemies to get those. Because then they'll be, oh wait, that guy's got twice the health now. It's going to take it forever to bring him down. Stinks. That's where Marcus is with this. Maybe keep the Nazis away from that
what's
thing.
weird. What's crazy is the Ark of the Covenant actually was like that's been tested empirically, right? Isn't that right, Pete? I mean, like they went to Jericho. Was the Israelites went to Jericho and they walked around the town of Jericho 3 times or whatever, or 7 times, and then they blew the trumpet and the walls fell down, and they had the Ark of the Covenant with them. You're like, yeah, that is an actual weapon of mass destruction and blah 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 blah. But the Holy Grail, I don't know how an army would use that.
Unless they all just couldn't die.
Yeah, it's like a medic in your party.
It would
It's like when you're playing Age of Empires and they've got the priests that come along and chant and everyone around them gets healed.
Right.
Yeah. Wizard needs some food.
Badly.
But that's God, what a mess. Like, imagine you're on the Russian front and you got to pass this Grail
Yeah.
up and down.
One sip for everybody.
The whole front.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's frozen.
Right. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I love Indiana Jones up on the hill in this scene. There's like
Is
so many things that I really like about this moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I do too.
There's, I really like when he says he's watching them with binoculars. And of course, I want to say there are two banthas down there, but I don't see any. Wait a second.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
But he's looking. He's like, they got a tank, and it sounds like he's like, God, that's so cool. They have a tank.
I know.
Where'd they
I
get a
know the way he
tank?"
says it.
He sounds like a kid. Like, wow, look at that tank. That's awesome.
Well, you know what is weird though? Listen right now. Listen to second 27.
Okay.
Indy says, "I see Brody. He seems okay."
Yeah.
And that is not Indy. That is not Harrison Ford.
I wrote that.
You okay?
I wrote that in my notes. I was like, that sounds
Yeah.
really weird. Is that ADR? Is that even Harrison Ford? I don't. It might not be.
That has nothing to do with Harrison Ford.
I wasn't buying it when
I'm
Jer
not
said
even
it, but
sure
now
who says that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds nothing like him.
It seems like weird, like unnecessary exposition that they added in post, and they just had somebody else. They had an impersonator just go in and be like, "Well, we want to make him seem like he cares about Marcus." Or I don't know what the idea
Yeah,
was.
exactly.
Yeah.
You want to make him seem like he cares about.
I just listened. It does it. It sounds like the video game voice of Harrison
Yeah,
Ford.
yeah, totally.
I don't know. I actually want to
Perry King?
accept it. Yeah, it's Perry King. I kind of want to accept it as Harrison Ford, like leaning on his elbows, on his laying on his chest. Like it sounds a little like just like a weird Harrison Ford to me.
I don't know, but it doesn't really match up with "They Got a Tank" either, though.
Yeah, it doesn't
yeah.
match up with "They Got a Tank." It doesn't. When he says "They Got a Tank," you're like, that sounds like Harrison Ford maybe was just on his elbows and he's sweating in his knee, and that sounds like that.
Although he is sitting up when he says they have a tank.
Yeah.
Right.
So does that change the scene? Like if originally when they shot it, it just said they've got a tank, and although the script does say that I see Brody, he seems okay. But does that change what their plan? Like, because I have no idea what their plan is here. Are they planning to do some kind of daring rescue of Marcus, or is their plan just to kind of follow them along?
Yeah, well, I don't know. It seems like they're just sort of keeping tabs on him for now. Because yeah, what are they going to do?
Indy has no intention of staying hidden, though. Like he's standing up here flashing their coordinates, basically, and he's not doing anything
By the
to
way,
stop.
I have what flashes? What is the glint?
I think it's the binoculars, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
Like the lens of
Is it?
binoculars is
Yeah.
reflecting.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
It's the windshield of the sandcrawler.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or he's winking right then. Yeah, that the macro binoculars definitely are Star Wars, and it also reminds me of Indy and Tanis when he's using that surveyor's scope.
Oh,
yeah.
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 That's very cool.
And then the follow up. This is I feel like I was not alone, but kind of growing up, I wasn't. I didn't have a huge group of friends to share these references with, and I outgrew. Well, they outgrew me, let's say, a lot. So like, there's definitely my neighbor that I went to see Temple of Doom with, and people who were totally like when we were 8 were totally into it, and then like as I kept being into it, and they were into other things like sports and
Weirdos.
then so I didn't really have a big kind of key group of like people that were into Star Wars and Raiders and Star Trek and all this stuff. But then it kind of cemented in college where I just kind of locked into a group of, showed up, and all of my other, a lot of the other friends that I was with there were just like, oh yeah, no. And they were like quoting, Superman 2. And I was like, oh, these are people that I am with now.
Started
but
crying.
yeah, exactly. I was like, where have you been my whole life? But this, the part with like, Dad, we're well out of range, is totally my RA, my freshman year RA, who was a really cool, like, perfect guy for all this stuff. Like he knew all the same stuff and was a friend of ours, like instantly,
Awesome.
pretty much. That was his one of his favorite parts in this. Like he would always say it. He was like, Dad, we're well out of range, because it's perfect. Like, he's being a kid, kind of like, and being, like when you see, even, fully grown adults, just like interacting with their parents and being like, Mom, like it's that same, like, exact thing.
That's not the right remote control, Mom.
Yeah.
That's for the toaster.
But Indy seems to be completely misunderstanding his dad, or else, because he doesn't say, "Oh, they can't see us." He says we're well out of range, and so it almost seems like he doesn't care if they see him, which seems like a really stupid idea.
I don't. I with all due respect to your RA, I don't understand this line at all, or what the heck. If Indy knows that that's a 6-pound gun, he's gonna. I mean, I don't know anything about 6-pound guns, but that doesn't seem crazy to be within range of a tank.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if he said, "Dad, they're not going to see us," or "Dad, they can't see us from up here," or like, "Dad, you're being ridiculous. They can't." Yeah, they can't see us.
But he doesn't seem to care that they can see him.
No, that's what's strange. He doesn't seem to care that they'd even be seen. He's just like, even if they see us.
He's assuming they can't see them, and he's saying even if they did, we're fine.
There you go.
Like, they can't shoot us.
Yeah.
And then so it's a little bit of, bravado too. A good part of like always knowing the right thing to do is pretending that you know the right thing to do a lot of the time.
Yeah.
When it works out,
yeah.
then it's like, oh, he always knows the right thing to do. And so I think that's, he's like, obviously there. Plus he's a little bit annoyed by his dad. So he's like,
Yeah.
oh, come on.
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
It's you know what I'll say. It's a classic Last Crusade signature. I can say that now. It's minute 85. We're here.
You mean the cut, then the cut to like the Gilligan cut to the car blowing up?
Yeah, it's just like this is probably like the 17th one of these. Set them up, knock them down.
Oh, I think this is one of the better ones. I like this one.
It is one of the better ones.
Yeah.
I
It
agree.
is. It's one of the better ones, but still, you know what? It's great because I don't know. It's great because of Harrison Ford being Indy. He it's his face and his scramble and his dustiness.
His
and
scramble might be my favorite part of the entire movie, maybe. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but it's like my new favorite discovery from this movie, maybe, watching it for this. Is like full on, like, whoop, 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 like, just like, kind of like, he's like everywhere at once, just freaking out. He's like, oh my gosh, they're actually shooting at us. My dad was right.
Here's a question. Did all three of them fight in World War One? Because they all seem to know that the shell, just by the sound of it, is going to land behind the wall.
That's super weird.
Yeah, because both Henry and Sala run in front of the wall, which you would think they would hide behind it, but they run in front of it.
Yeah.
And then the shell blows up the
Yeah,
car.
Henry was just yelling. Yeah, Henry's yelling at him to get behind the rocks for safety in case they shoot at them. And then as soon as they shoot at them, they all scramble to the other side of the rocks.
Yeah. Which I guess if they were in the trenches and they had learned the sounds of these, they might have, maybe they all were in the war and they all learned, hey, that means we got to get, it's going to go farther. We need to get in front of the wall.
It seems like a pretty accurate, what's the word I'm looking for? Guess.
Well, that's the thing. Like they would have had to have some experience, or else, it doesn't really make any sense.
It's really weird. I'm watching it now, and you're right. They all jump out like the shell is guaranteed to whiz over or past them.
Yeah, which is kind of what you hear all the time. Like if you read those World War I books, they're like, oh, you could tell why this was a whiz bang, or you could tell by this when it was going to go over our heads, or this was going to land in front of us, or
It's crazy.
I was wondering, were the Nazis trying to hit the car? Like, according to Donovan and the Nazis, did they just strike a bullseye?
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Like,
yeah.
And the other crazy thing about it is, do they see Indiana Jones? Like, forget a glint. I'm not talking about a glint or binoculars. Do they see Indiana Jones, or do they see a glint and be like, shoot them both?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah.
Well, because later on, like in a couple of minutes, there's like doubt. Like, oh, was it the Joneses? I don't know. Like, I think they just saw something and they're like, oh, that might be the Jones boys following us. We know they escaped. We know that they would be the ones out here following us. Let's just take a shot.
But did they hit the car by mistake, or are they aiming for the car?
That's a good
I don't know.
question.
I'm not even sure they can see I think they just take a shot up there and they just luckily hit the car.
Yeah, they probably saw
That's
something.
what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And they just aimed for whatever that thing was.
Yeah.
That turret can't be that accurate either.
Right.
But okay, Pete, is that out of range for a 6-pound tank gun?
I'll let other Pete take this because I have no idea. I'll assume you were talking to Pete the retailer.
I think it's obviously they're within range.
Yeah.
I don't even know what a 6-pound gun is.
I don't either.
Oh, I have a great question. I have a fantastic question.
No, he did not think surprise was wiser.
No. This is even better. When they fired the gun, did he say target maximum firepower?
Oh,
The answer is yes, of course he did.
of course. Distance to power generator. Yeah.
Distance to Henry Jones.
Let's see. The ordnance quick-firing 6-pounder, or just 6-pounder was a British 57 millimeter gun serving as a primary anti-tank gun of the British Army during World War II. It was in service 1942 to 1960. So that can't be this, right?
Yeah. And also, I'm looking at the shot right now from the tank's eye view, and you can't see the car. You can only see a glint.
Right. That's what I'm wondering. Did they just shoot up there for fun?
Yeah, maybe it's a little target practice.
Yeah.
Oh, here
I don't know.
You got another a 6-pounder gun or 6-pounder usually denotes a 57 millimeter gun firing a projectile weighing approximately 6 pounds. And they go back to the 1800s and different types of it. Here. This is there's perfect, like I clicked on the example for the one from the that goes back to 1917. And the picture that they use as an example is totally like a Mark V tank that's like perfect, looks exactly like this tank. So I guess that's got to be it. It's the Ordnance QF 6-pounder 6 CWT Hotchkiss Mark I and Mark II. So it's a Hotchkiss. I'm trying to see what the range is, though. Barrel length, shell caliber, breech, recoils, hydro spring. Bring me the hydro spring. Oh, here we go. Effective firing range, 7,300 yards.
Whoa.
That's way.
Seems like they're well
it's
within
a
range.
Tank.
Yeah.
That's nuts. That's crazy. Hey, speaking of range, can I've earned the reputation of being a crank about this movie, even though I really like it. It's one of my favorite movies, so everybody leave me alone. I'm just picking at this thing because I'm watching it 1 minute at a time. For God's sake, I gotta get this thing. But listen, he does. I gotta give him credit for this amazing shot. We're talking about the dad. It's way out of range. They timed that line of dialogue with the tank firing way, like thousands of feet away down there. That's a one shot. That's really, really, really nicely done. Very cool.
Although what I think is not completely nicely done is that the muzzle flash and the sound happen at the same time.
Oh, see, Pete, come on. I'm trying to
That's
so
a good point,
Scrambling.
Pete. Yeah.
No, that is true.
That's true. I'm scrambling.
But that's cinematic, though.
It is. It makes more sense from a storytelling perspective. Yeah. But I'm looking down at this column too, and that does look like the sand crawler, that big rock. You're right, P3 Taylor. Behind them, it's like a sand crawler's kind of falling over. Like they shot that first, so now they're coming after the car.
I want to know: is that Omar's car?
No, it's his brother. I don't think Omar's his brother-in-law, is he?
Is Omar his brother-in-law?
I think he is. Maybe it is Omar's car because Omar had a garage.
But wait,
Omar had a garage.
But wait, settle, tap the brakes. Whoever said that Omar was Salah's brother-in-law?
Didn't he say it in the movie?
Couldn't possibly be. I'm
looking it up right now.
You gotta have.
Yeah. That's worth it. If we can look up 6-pounder, we can look up Omar.
Omar was a friend and brother-in-law of Salah.
Woo!
Listen, when in doubt, go to the Wikipedia.
It doesn't say friend and brother-in-law, does it? That's not a thing.
It does. It says friend and brother-in-law.
You need to go to the Ratepedia.
Case in point, that's baloney. They phrase it friend and brother-in-law.
Well, that's because he says that's my brother-in-law's car.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a little...
Probably friend and then later brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Like they were friends, and he's like, hey, have you met my sister?
This is just like Star Wars. There's 5 people in the galaxy. And they're all related to each other.
Well, you know what's really weird is, so if that's his brother-in-law's car, is that how Salah got to Eskedron?
Yeah, I think so.
Did he drive his brother-in-law's car all the way from Cairo?
Oh, wow.
But his brother-in-law also, like his brother-in-law is the one that did the hidden van behind the garage trick.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And he had the garage, so this all
Right.
kind of ties in together.
It does. You're right.
Yeah.
His brother-in-law's got his own Potemkin village.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't he just say Omar? Because Indy's on a first name basis.
But we
with
don't know
Omar.
who Omar is.
Yeah, I don't even remember if they said who Omar's name is.
Indiana Jones is the one guy who says Omar in Raiders of the Lost Ark. You guys have not even seen Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Maybe he was saying it for Henry's benefit. Henry doesn't know who the hell Omar is.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
But now I definitely want to see Omar and Indiana Jones story spin-off film. Because he's got his own whole thing worked out.
There's adventures around the globe where they turn trucks into hidden storefronts.
It's all car-based.
Yeah. Hidden trucks.
Well, before we go anywhere, too, I should probably save this for like the plug area or whatever. But hell, I'm going to do it here because what are you going to do? Kick me off the show?
Well, we'll see. We'll reserve judgment.
But since I've got a streak going, I wanted to bring up recommend another Alexi Sale show. It was Alexi Sale's Merry-Go-Round. It was the third iteration of his BBC kind of sketch comedy shows. And this one is the most recent, so this is kind of a 90s version of it. Late 90s, maybe? And this one had a bunch of people that are now people that you've heard of. Like Edgar Wright wrote for it, and I think directed some of it. Noel Fielding was on it. Peter Serafinowicz was on it. A bunch of current British was involved in that. So want to recommend that. I think that one's the hardest to find out of the three, but
weird.
But keep an eye out for it. There's funny stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
And it's a weird brackish kind of between the kind of Python stuff and the kind of more current absurdist stuff.
Mm-hmm. We should ask you, did you finally discover Monty Python?
Some. I'm not as well versed in it as most nerds of my age and stature.
I mean, that's one of the staples. It's one of the cornerstones of a certain kind of nerdery.
I know.
I hope you're not left out in the cold or anything.
A little bit. I am. Alex will make references that I don't get all the time to Monty Python. I'm like, but I referenced like the same ridiculous, like episodes that I caught on tape from, the one where Alexi Sale's doing a cooking show and nobody gets it.
No.
Okay, I'll just make my own little references. I'll be hipster. I'll be like, oh yeah, Monty Python's the popular one, but it's a little. I'm a fan of this other absurdist sketch comedian you probably never heard of.
I don't get that guy's references. He's awesome.
Exactly.
Where'd he come from?
He's ragging on Thatcher.
Well, I think that does it for minute 85, doesn't it, everybody? Right, Jerry?
Why,
Jerry?
why, yes. Speaking of not getting references and in-laws and the whole thing.
Yeah?
Hey, this just in from Professor Christy Porter.
Oh, my word.
Oh, my word. It's bitter. It's it. I like a little boogeyman in my Marcus. How does Marcus's faith show up in day-to-day life?
His
yeah,
faith?
Wow. Yeah, his faith. Maybe his faith, his religion.
I can see him sort of like hiding his light under a bushel a little bit. Just sort of, it's like a very, very private thing. He just sort of gleans this stuff from his research and things, and it's like, becomes part of his worldview without him necessarily, I don't know, being a church-going guy or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see him maybe going to mass, but Vespers would be too much.
Maybe.
Yeah, Vespers. Yeah, maybe confession once a year or something. But I don't know what Marcus would confess.
Wow.
Oh.
He's like, nah, I met this guy Indiana Jones, and I'm enabling him.
Yeah. I heard a guy to
Dear
steal
Father.
the precious
Yeah.
treasures from some
Dear Father.
I'm a fence.
Exactly. I'm having, dear Father, my last confession was the last crusade.
Well, see, I wonder if he says this about everything. Like he takes his car in to get fixed, and he's like, I can't figure out what's wrong. And the guy's like, oh, it's just a carburetor, and he's like, oh, you're meddling with powers you can't possibly understand.
No one knows what a carburetor really does.
Do you think he's a bless us, O Lord? Like one of those guys who sits down and says grace? Like, bless us, O Lord.
Maybe.
Yeah, probably.
I think Henry is.
Yeah.
You think who is?
Yeah, Henry
Yeah.
could be. Yeah, Henry could be a guy who says grace or blessing or a prayer before meal times.
Yeah.
He throws in a for thine.
In Greek.
Yeah.
Yes. Throws in a for thine. I don't know.
Yeah.
Marcus has a very personal. These are always very, very personal moments. After he says these things, like you're meddling with something you shouldn't, whatever. He always has like a quiet second or two where he's staring off into space.
Yeah. He just got real.
Always. Yeah, everything just got real. He's like, I don't even know why I come over here anymore, Indy.
Yeah, it's getting weird every time.
Yeah.
Don't
listen to me.
Well, Pete the Retailer, why do you keep coming over here?
Who?
It seems like you had a fun time the last few days, and we hope you did because we did.
I did, and I'm glad. I'm glad I was here, and I really do like this movie.
Yeah,
and it's
a good one. How does it rank for you against the other 2 or 7? I don't know how many there are. 3? There are 3 other ones,
right?
Besides this one.
Well, yeah, much like Elsa, this is my number 2.
Okay.
Yeah. It's I feel like it's similar, similar enough in tone to Raiders, the original, but not. If anything, it just kind of it fails a little bit in depth. But as as I was saying, for why I like the Phantom Menace better than the other prequels is I'd rather something. Usually I say I'd rather something be bad and goofy than bad and kind of dark. And I'm not saying either of the other Raiders either of the other Indiana Jones movies are bad. Or any of the Indiana Jones movies, I guess. I haven't gone back to revisit the Aliens one yet, but I prefer a lighthearted movie that doesn't quite hit versus a slightly darker movie that doesn't quite hit. So that's why I like this more than Temple of Doom. But I mean, nothing's ever going to beat Raiders. But I won't say never, but it's unlikely.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Let's just say probably not. Well, awesome. Well, before we go, why don't you remind people where they can find you, because you've got important things going on in other places.
Currently, you can find me in my basement talking into a microphone that's attached. Please don't come to my basement, everybody. But yeah, no, I rarely update it, but PeteTheRetailer.com sometimes has links to all the stuff that I do. Every once in a while, it breaks and reverts to an old install of WordPress for some reason. So don't do that if it's there. But otherwise, it would link to Star Wars Minute, which is my bread and butter. Nerd Geek Dork, which is an old show that I used to do with Adam. So maybe eventually we'll bring that back into some capacity.
I enjoyed that show.
Thank you. We did a whole episode about Temple of Doom.
That's right.
Yeah.
You did.
Also, Alphabetical was another show I did with Adam and Alex from Star Wars Minute and our friend John, where we went through all the Beatles songs alphabetically from 12 to Y. And then currently we're doing ABC Devo. It's me. It's your host, Tom Taylor. It's our other friends, John Engel and Joe Mazel. We go through all the Beatles songs. Weirdly, it's called ABC Devo, but we go through Beatles songs. We go through all the Devo songs in alphabetical order.
We
reviewing them, chatting
about
them.
Fun.
Yeah, having fun.
Yeah, I love Devo. I better.
Well, we're all Devo.
We are all Devo. And we're also all Indiana Jones. Is that true? Maybe in some way.
To some extent.
Yeah. Everybody look inside your soul and see how much of you is Indiana Jones. And
Who among us hasn't robbed a grave at some point?
Right. We've all got a lot to answer for, just like Indiana Jones. So please come back here tomorrow with an essay about how much of you is Indiana Jones. And whether or not you turn that in, you can listen to us discuss minute 84. Is that true? Wait, do we just do 85? We're coming back on Monday, right?
Yep.
Wait, what are we? I honestly forget. Okay.
Yeah, we're on 80.
No,
we just finished
86.
85.
We just finished 85. Okay.
Yeah.
Rewind, everybody. Okay. But come back on Monday with your essay about how much of you is Indiana Jones. And we will discuss minute 86 of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
Hey, Jer, what does the tank do? It hones in on the car.
Wow.
Wow. That was good. I love that.
That was just
I
for
love
you.
that.
You're the only person that
Thank
would love
you.
that. But yeah.
Yeah, this has been a great minute for you and me.
Yeah, you guys
It's been
came
really
together.
good.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
We came together here.